What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for week 3 of building the Battle of Coruscant in Lego. This week I'm going to be working on some more buildings, but not the skyscrapers. I'm going to be working on the lower block of buildings that we see down underneath those on the ground level. I'm also going to be starting on the sidewalk, throwing in some lampposts, which sounds kind of crazy considering I'm only on week 3 and I'm already starting to work on some of the finishing details of this mock. But that's kind of the cool thing about this project is I'm going to be getting to the more fun builds a lot quicker. I do also have a few clone troopers that have been decaled that need to be assembled. All that being said, I got a lot coming for you guys. If you're excited to see this update, don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button. And while you're down there, if you're watching for the first time, consider subscribing and tapping that bell so you'll be notified as soon as my next video drops. All that being said, it's time for me to get to work. I want to finish laying out this section before anything else this week. Once this is done, I'm free to move on to the roads, sidewalks, buildings, and anything else I want in this section. And turns out last week when I was putting down those rows of filler brick, I made one of the gaps one stud too wide on one row and threw all the other rows off. So now I have to adjust each one as I go, which I thought was kind of funny considering how I was talking about math and laying out things correctly last week. I've put a surprising amount of thought into this section. I thought the foundation was going to be fairly simple, but I think that's how it goes with most mock projects. You have a basic idea of what you want to do, and then once you try to actually attempt it, then all of the problems and things you didn't think about jump out at you. Okay, I got this area all plated and finished off. I even got the light bluish gray ring of plate put on the outside. I got the headlight bricks in so I can put the frame in when I want to. So this section is ready for the buildings. Now to talk about the problems that I've already encountered this week and kind of I've been thinking about since last week. First one is the size of this clone base. So if you can see right here, I actually made this section bigger than this section. So I think it's like about right there, maybe 10 studs longer. And I did this because I was worried that the clone base wouldn't be big enough to realistically house both the buildings and a motor pool. I didn't want things to seem too squished, so I gave myself a little bit of extra room there. I didn't want these two sides of the city to match each other exactly, so this road's going to go off right here. That road will be scooted back this way a little bit, so they'll be offset. This one fits the scale much better in my opinion, and it gives you a little step to be able to jump up onto here and then get up onto the sidewalk easier. The problem with this is you can see there's a little bit of exposed green filler brick on the inside, which is so frustrating because if I were to, get rid of that, I would have to pull all of these plates back one stud and then add another layer of light bluish gray plate in, and I am already pretty low on light bluish gray 1x plate, so it would just eat up my stores even more and I'd have to order a bunch more in. But I feel like this does look a little bit better than this, and I also don't like this 90-degree cutoff. I don't like this 90-degree angle right here. I like how there's a little bit more gradual ascent to the sidewalk and it's not as sharp, and it just adds more detail, helps break up the different levels of the sidewalk and road more. My third option would be using cheese slopes in place of these tiles, and so I would still have, that same I would still have that same height difference between the sidewalk and the minifigure, but it would be offset in that direction a little bit, so it wouldn't be as noticeable. See, if you set a minifigure right there, he's basically as tall as the sidewalk right here at this point, and then, you know, angles up that way. The thing I don't like about this is it doesn't look as good as this step, and, you know, for a minifigure to realistically step up onto the sidewalk, he's basically gonna have to jump, because you can see he can't really get his leg up there, which I know isn't a huge deal. I'm not creating, you know, these minifigures don't actually have to walk in this MOC. I just think with perspective and scale, it's important to build things that look like these minifigures could interact with them in this world, if that makes sense. So let me know which of these three designs you like the best, whether it be cheese slope, a little step, or just the drop off. That being said, I am going to get back to work, and when I have more to update you with, I will check back in. I also have a juicy haul to show you guys. So if you remember last week, I was talking about how many slopes these skyscrapers use. So I ordered in just a ridiculous amount of slopes. This was an expensive Bricklink order. Fortunately, I did get a couple of these kind of yellowed ones, which is annoying, but I think most of them should be good. This should be enough pieces for at least one more, maybe 1.5 more skyscrapers combined with what I already have. And then I did also get some pieces in for the clone base wall. Let's see what else is in here. I've got some tiles, light bluish gray, dark bluish gray, can never go wrong with those. And then I got a bunch of headlight bricks for the frame. I made sure to get whatever was really cheap, and preferably in non-light bluish gray and dark bluish gray. That way I could use those for exposed sections of the MOC, and I can use these random colored ones for the frame and other places that will be covered up. Looks like just a lot more slopes. I think the majority of this order was slopes. I knew I was going to need a lot, and so I tried to find a store with as many as I could. And then to cap it off, we've got some more light bluish gray and dark bluish gray. So lots of light gray and dark gray, but this should help a lot with the building situation. I have a batch of decaled and sealed clones that need to be assembled. This will probably be my last batch of the summer, as it's getting pretty hot outside. But I have about 20 shock troopers and 20 P2 grunts, which is a good start to the end goal of 40 of each. Alright, I have a lot to show you guys. So now that the plate is down on both of these sections, it's time to start building the buildings and sidewalk. So starting out with the sidewalk, I actually ended up going with this stepped technique. I don't know if you... I know I was talking about some different styles that I was going to try out here earlier, and as I was looking at it, I realized it actually wouldn't be too hard to switch the bricks around because I had a lot of gaps back here in the plate. So I actually just scooted all of this filler plate this direction, one stud, and then scooted that row of light bluish gray plate this direction, one stud. So I didn't end up using any more plate than was already on here. I just adjusted it, and this was the technique I was the most happy with, and I felt looked the best. So I'm glad I didn't compromise on that, because you can just see like that little extra step adds a lot of detail and a lot more depth to this section. Moving on to the sidewalks. So originally I was going to have the sidewalks be only 6 studs wide, so they were going to end right here. But I've got these lamp posts in, and I'm going to talk about them more in a second, but I realized the lamp posts hang over the sidewalk 6 studs. So if I were to have a wall right there, the wall would be literally like touching the front of the lamppost. So I decided to move it back a few more studs just to give it a little bit more space. They are still pretty close, but I mean, you know, this is Coruscant. It's a crowded, packed city. You don't have the luxury of space in a lot of sections, so I figured, you know, that would be okay. You can see I've started working on the walls for the lower blocks of buildings. So this is just going to be like a big rectangle with different angles and shapes cut into it. And then on top of that, we're going to have the fancier skyscrapers and other buildings. And I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be going super simple with this. It's literally just going to be plate on its side because there's probably going to be nothing on the inside. I figured using plate on its side would be cheaper than buying brick because that would use a ton of brick, and you can cover a larger area with plate than you can, you know, each brick. Like this will cover 6x8 studs and will allow for a lot more detail on the walls. If I wanted to do detail with brick, you know, I'd have to stick a bunch of headlight bricks in facing out like this to put stuff on. But I basically have an entire blank canvas at my disposal now with all this exposed plate where I can build sections out. I can take some of this plate out and move sections in further, kind of like that. And then I'll have this nice, fairly cheap frame that I can work with. And then I'm going to cover the front of it with tile. It's being held up by these headlight bricks, and these ones are a little bit special. These ones are unique in the fact that your typical headlight brick won't work for this, because if I were to put a headlight brick down and stick this plate to this brick, it would actually be raised up off the ground a little bit. You can see this one is basically flush with the bottom right here, and that's because you can see the studs on this brick are actually lower to the ground than on this regular headlight brick. So I've been collecting as many of these as I can. I don't have a whole lot, unfortunately, and I'm gonna have to cover all of this, and they're gonna all have to be held up by these. So I'm gonna have to order a bunch more, which is unfortunate, but I am happy I at least have enough to get this started. Now I can talk about these awesome stoplights. I'm so happy with how they turned out. I think, you know, part of the reason I'm so excited about these is just because it was just fun to like finally build a small little build that I can finish in one episode, and I had all the parts for. I didn't have to order in any parts for these. I had them all on hand, which was, you know, a rare occurrence. So it's pretty simple, just 2 hinges with a light on top. I don't know if Coruscant actually had these on the sidewalks and stuff. I just felt like this is something you would typically see in a city, and so it gives you that urban city vibe. So even though if they weren't actually on Coruscant, I still think they would bring a lot of benefit to this mall. The thing I haven't decided with them is which direction they're going to face. You can see on this side of the road, they're actually hanging over the road, but over here, they are facing the sidewalk. And I'm trying to figure out which one I like more, because the sidewalk kind of makes sense because you'd want to have this area illuminated at night. So, you know, you don't want to get robbed or have anything crazy happen or run into something. And there's going to be tons of cars on this road, so it's going to be pretty well lit anyways. But on the other hand, this side just looks more realistic because typically, you know, you don't have these giant lampposts hanging over the sidewalk. They're over the street to light up the road so cars don't run into each other and hit things. However, you're probably going to have some massive things just driving down this road because it's Coruscant, and look how big this road is. And so I'm worried, you know, the height of these lampposts will kind of hinder what's able to drive down this road and make it so only kind of smaller, shorter to the ground vehicles can drive, if that makes sense. So I'm not really sure which one I'm going to go with. Let me know down below in the comments which side you think looks better. I almost forgot. Here's a quick look at those decaled troopers I put together. They all turned out really good. Really little to no mistakes on these. I did accidentally open the armholes on this torso a little bit too wide, so this arm is kind of loose, unfortunately, but these other ones are okay, and I'm excited to add them to the army. So that pretty much wraps up everything I wanted to say, and that's going to wrap up this week. But I'm really excited to be in week 3 and already working on the final details of the city. Like, that's so cool, and just makes me excited for the rest of this build, because that's going to be what a lot of this is. You know, this stuff isn't super complicated, so I'm going to be able to finish it and do a lot of the funner, more interesting detail builds sooner, which should hopefully make for more interesting updates and overall just be more of a fun build. You know, I don't have to spend so much time working on filler stuff, and I can just do more smaller builds that kind of bring this whole thing together. All that being said, it's time to hit the outro. This was a fun week. Like, I was building yesterday, just working on Coruscant, and I literally had to pull myself away from it just because I was having so much fun. And I'm even more excited for what I've got coming for you guys next week, because I want to start adding in some battle damage, and that needs to be added in now. Some of it I can do later, but it's going to be easiest now while the foundation of the buildings and sidewalks are exposed, to kind of break them up and put in kind of the broken style of building that I want to do. All that being said, don't forget to let me know what you guys thought about this update down below in the comments, and I will catch you guys in the next one. But until then, happy building.